My name's Lou. I'm one of the designers at Scrapbook Stamp Society. Welcome to my craft room. And it's my turn for Tutorial Tuesday this week. So, I wanted to show you the Drop Stepper card. Okay, this was a design introduced to us by Kanban, an UK company, round about last Christmas. But I don't think it's reached your side of the pond, and every time I use it I get asked as to how I did it. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to give you a tutorial. So basically the drop stepper is what it says. It's got a little drop inside, okay, as you can see there, alright, which creates a shelf, and obviously the back drops down as well. However, if you push it out instead of pushing it in, you get this very proud surface to place a design on. And of course, depending as to how you want to play with it, you can create some very dimensional card shapes with it. Okay, so I have done a template for you. It is going to be available on my blog later on. You can find the link through the Scrapbook Stamp Society page. And basically, on an A4 piece of card, I recommend working in inches, okay, purely because you need a solid frame, okay, that is strong enough to give support to the card. So I've got an inch here, I've got an inch here, an inch here, the distance here is an inch, as is there, okay. So let's get on, and I'll draw it up very quickly for you. Or not draw it, square it and cut it so you can see how it works. Now, I have the inch measurement side of my board facing upwards at the moment, and I want to use this point here and this point, which is an inch, as a rough guide as to where I need to score. So, there we go. I want to score down just below halfway, not too far. Okay, because if you score too far, you are going to create a weakness in the card itself. Okay, so I've scored 2 lines an inch in. Right, I'm going to turn the card sideways and line it back up, and now I'm going to score another inch. Okay, like I said, it's all in inches. Next one is an inch in from that, so this is at the 2 inch mark. Okay, so you've got 1 inch, 2 inch there. Now, because in the UK the A4 size card, which is our standard, isn't 12 centimetres, 12 inches, it also isn't 30 centimetres. Okay, so the centimetre side of my hoogey has actually been adjusted so that I know where the centrepiece, the centre mark for an A4 piece of card is. So I've just scored that, I'm going to turn it back over, and I've got one more line to score and possibly a bit of tidying up. So now I'm going to mark the centre line on my card, and I'm going to go an inch beyond it. Here's my centre line here. That's the score I put in my card, and I need to go along another inch. But I don't want to go sort of beyond the lines that I've already scored. So I'm just going to scroll this one down, and I can find it. There it is. And I'm going to tidy up, and then I shall pick it up and show you exactly what I did. There we go. Right. Now, let's see how well this camera picks this up. Ooh, not very well. Okay, maybe a bit better back there. Alright, you can just about see these if you look very hard. So, maybe a bit better on this side. So there's an inch from there. There's no marks here in this corner. There's no marks in this corner. Then coming in, another inch line is marked. The inch line is scored down the sides of the card. Okay. The centre part, the centre marking for the card okay, does not cross into this back panel, alright, because you don't want to weaken it, okay, so you only want to score an inch long, alright, just to meet the border lines that you've already scored, and then beyond that is another inch mark, but it doesn't protrude outside of the original line that you've scored down there, okay. I'm just going to run a knife blade through this. You are going to need a knife and preferably a metal edge ruler, because the last thing you want to do is go slicing all your rulers up. And I'm just going to run that down to the very first score line, so between the first and the last score lines. Okay, and the same again, first and last score lines. Again. And that's all the hard work done. Now we just have to fold it, so I'm going to fold on the opposite side, so I want to press that down so I get a bit of a start there. I want to pull that one down so I get a bit of a start there. And then what I tend to do is actually, although I'm doing it back to front, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thumbs in this time and bend the front bit back, and then leaving my thumbs in place and using my fingers to push up. Okay, so this at the moment looks a little bit weird and you're thinking, help, you've gone wrong. You haven't. Lie it down flat, okay, and just score your lines. There we go. That's your drop stepper card. Okay, turn it round so you can see there's the little shelf inside there. Okay, and it's perfect for all that you thought it was going to go wrong. Okay, so what I have here is I have some card that I've already pre-scored and sliced, but this card is a little bit bigger than an A4 sheet of card. Okay, that's A4 there, the edge is neat, but that sort of goes off the edge a bit. Okay, the reason that I did it this way is, one, I'm used to working with this design, so when you become used to it you can obviously play with it a little bit more, but my design, I knew with what I wanted to do with it was going to be bigger than what I would ordinarily get in an A4. So what I did was I joined two pieces of card the same colour. Now, because of the way I want this design to work, I've actually put the join right at the front here, and I think sometimes you can just about pick it up. There it is, that one there, there's one here, and one here. Okay, my design, the main design, is going to cover that piece there, so you're not going to see this join here. There is also going to be a frame goes round the outside of this card, so you're also not going to see these join lines either. Okay, if it was that you are going to leave the front of the card blank, okay, then obviously you might want to consider about extensions being on the back of the card as opposed to the front. Okay, I've just joined mine with some double-sided sticky. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just burnish these cards. It's been sitting around and been fiddled with for a little bit, so my borders on this are also slightly bigger than 1 inch, but that's purely because of the size of what I want to do with this design. So I've taken an image by Heather Kilgore from Scrapbook Stamp Society, okay, a rather lovely lady who just sort of screams to me that it's Time Machine and H.G. Wells sort of thing, very steampunky, but my mate Linda, who's also a designer at Scrapbook Stamp, also does steampunk, and she's very good at it, so I'm not even going to go there. I really do like this image. The only bits that I've actually added are, firstly, the lines, okay, because you'll see why I wanted to bring this in a minute. I've added some crystal accents at various points just to highlight, including her eyes as well, which is why sometimes they're glinting at you, because crystal accents on eyes really does bring them to life. And obviously I've coloured her with my pro markers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide her into the bottom of the shelf, like that. There we go. I just turn it like that. You can see she's on the bottom of the shelf down there. Okay. Now I've created a frame on my eCraft, and I've embossed it with a Sizzix embossing folder. All I can tell you is it's got leaves on because I threw the packaging away. It's rather silly. And the piece of gold mirror that was going to be left on the inside of the car, I put some cogs on, which I've actually distressed with some Ranger alcohol inks, the copper version. And I've created a picture behind the frame that she's trying to come through and tell you about the time factor. So I have a verse for the back of the card, and this is a verse I picked up off the internet, on the free verse sites, and this is by a gentleman called Nate Hawk. I'm just going to stick that on there like that. Okay. And there's my Hunting Time by Heather Kilgore. It's a very dimensional card, okay, to look at. Plenty of light can come through from the top as well, but obviously folds nice and flat. This particular style of card is useful on a lot of occasions, and it really does depend how you want to go to town with them. Okay, this is one I did last week for Scrapbook Stamp. Okay, this is one that's on my blog from last week. It's a little bit different in that this one here I've actually put added supports in, because what I want the card to do is stand quite flat at the back to go against a mirror or a fireplace or a wall or something, or even a window, and then you can see the image just sort of sitting out on you. This one's actually done with something called melt dust paper, which is done by a company called Micro Studio, and it allows you to pour embossing powder onto a printed image because it doesn't dry very quickly. Now this is another version of the A4 stepper card that you're looking at, and this is by Morgan Fitzsimons, and this pretty lady has been on my blog from some time earlier in the year. But again, it is actually the same card. It's the same card design, it's just a different spin on it. So do have a play around with it. Do pop to the shop at Scrapbook Stamp Society and pick up some of these images for yourself and have a play. And I do hope you'll pop by my blog and get the template as well. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you have fun with the design, and we'll see you next week for Tutorial Tuesday at Scrapbook Stamp. Thanks very much. Bye.